Noob School. All right, well, welcome back to Noob School. Today, I've got the OG of fitness in Greenville, South Carolina, Billy Fletcher. Billy, welcome to the Noob School.
I appreciate you having me here. I'm looking forward to us talking.
Awesome. Well, Billy has done more things for fitness in Greenville than anybody that I know, going back to the early 90s?
Yeah, it was probably early 90s when I first moved to Greenville, yes. Mm-hmm.
So you started in, now he's got a big gym with multiple things in it. I'm one of his customers, but he's got the best Jiu-Jitsu in the area. He'll tell you more about that. He's got a special place for getting high schoolers and kids kind of optimized for sports. And he's got a really cool way to train people using resistance weights, particularly, let's say, more mature people, to kind of keep their muscle tone up as they age without spending a lot of time, which is good. And that's called Optimization Fitness Lab.
Right? Optimization Training Lab, yes.
Training Lab, excuse me.
Yes.
So you've got a big complex over there, but you started in 96. There's a town called 96
Yes.
in South Carolina. Where is 96?
If most people are familiar with Greenwood, it's
Okay.
right near Greenwood.
Okay.
So Greenwood was the big city to us back then. If you went to Greenwood,
That's
'cause
great.
we didn't have anything in '96. So.
That's great. That's great. And you told me you weren't, as big and strong as you are now, but you were into sports and fitness at an early age.
Yes. Growing up in this small town, it wasn't really a lot to do.
Yeah.
So almost everybody played sports. I wouldn't say I was, looking back, I would not consider myself really much of an athlete.
Yeah.
But really kind of changed, I guess, and really kind of led me down the path I'm on now is I had some what I consider to be very good coaches that encouraged me. Mm-hmm. And then when they said, well, he'll work hard. Mm-hmm. So I would work hard, and they acknowledged me for that, and that encouraged me more. And then, and getting in the weight room way back, like when I was in the seventh grade, I remember the first time I went and picked up some weight. I didn't really know what I was doing, but they had some supervision there and everything, and that really changed my life, mm-hmm. Starting there.
Mm-hmm.
But I give credit a lot to the coaches because, if I had not had those same coaches, maybe I would have done something else. But that, and just physically changing, through my training, but also probably more I would say, looking back, is also the psychological piece. Mm-hmm. Gaining confidence and
Mm-hmm.
Put the work in, you can get a result.
Right.
That sort of thing is also a big part of it.
And so just to stay on that point for a second, do the work, drink the water, get the sleep, get the sunlight, all that stuff, and you see your body respond, and your markers are better, and whatever the things are. And that carries over, like my point with the salespeople is that carries over to sales. If they say, if I make the calls, if I show up on time, if I follow the process, the results are going to come. It's the same thing, isn't it?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's the same thing. And the more you see that success, the easier it is to keep doing it.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay. So, all right. So 96, and you went to Clemson.
Yes.
Okay. And what'd you study there?
Well, I tried to find my way there, I would say. So I started off in education because I thought I wanted to coach, which I am coaching now, but just in a different route.
Right.
And then later went back in health science, which was more related to what I'm actually doing now.
Mm-hmm.
Those are really the main things that I studied there.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Have you followed anybody that's doing like really out of the box things to try to live a really long time?
I would say that's probably the people I follow the most. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, that's now is I wasn't thinking like that when I was back in college and that
We're
sort
all
of
going to
thing.
live forever.
Yes.
Yeah.
But now I think that's has become more of my focus over the last few years. Not just to, for myself personally, and that's kind of been part of my journey too. Is it's like I've been very fortunate to be able to kind of follow my passion, and be able to make a living doing it. So it's kind of like the things that we have at our gym are things that I love. So I don't have a gym to do one thing and then I do something else. It's kind of part of my whole life. So, and of course the longevity part has become, as I get older, it becomes even more important
every day.
But not just living longer, but living well. And that includes physically, but also mentally. Even the spiritual side of it is a part of that. And that's I would say, a lot of people I look at in that area. I just actually found out this morning that I think you're a fan of Mark Devine.
Yes.
So I did a bunch of training with Mark. So he's kind of a guy I look up to. Dave Asprey is another guy. I'd be familiar with him. And I've done some things through some other organizations. Puron, which is a company that really, they do like performance medicine. So I really learned a lot from them through some of their, coaching programs. Looking at, DNA and genetics and trying to optimize people from that perspective. So that's a huge area of interest for me. And then it comes back to, for us, like, part of it, the big part of it for us is especially as we get older, is our muscular system. Just keeping it as strong as we can and as mobile as we can. So
Well, Dave Osprey sounds familiar, but there's one guy that I've been following who, young entrepreneur, sold his business for a boatload of money and has kind of devoted his life to, with himself being a guinea pig, to figure out how long can he live. And he's lowered, whatever that test is, it says how old is your body.
Yes.
He's lowered his every year for 10 years. So he's getting younger. And he's doing blood transfusions, and he takes like 140 supplements. And you know what I'm talking about? Have you heard of this guy?
There's a few of them out there. I'm not sure the specific one.
Well, we'll figure that out later, but it's wild. And he looks crazy. I mean, he's just completely ripped because he's just, his body is kind of his business. But I'll go back just sideways for a second. One of my points I work with a lot of people that are young people that are in college, or maybe they're just out of college. There's always that thing of, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? I had that when I was that age. What am I going to do? And I always tell them, whatever you like, whatever your passions are, try to find a way to get in that ecosystem. All right? And people just recently, last week, a young man said he wants to be a race car driver. Hadn't really driven a lot of race cars, but he loves this Formula One. And I said, well, it's okay. I said, you're a really good salesperson. I said, why don't you see if you can go sell for any of those magazines or websites or suppliers, or just get in there. And while you're there, maybe you start driving on the weekends or something. But, honestly, no one's going to hire you probably tomorrow to be a Formula One guy. But I think, in your case, you are in a very different place today than when you started. But you just got in the game, right? You got in the game. Like I know at Clemson you were working for Nautilus, right?
Yes.
So you worked at a gym. You started to understand what that was like, and that probably wasn't what you wanted to do for your whole life, but it was an entry point.
Yes.
And how long did you do that?
I worked there for, I think, 2 years. And the gentleman that owned that gym wanted to open up a one-on-one gym in Greenville, and so asked me to come, work with him. And so that's kind of how I got to Greenville. And of course, I've been here ever since. But it's taken on, like you said, it's taken on so many different, pieces. I mean, like I said, beginning it was probably more focused on the physical. Like I said, just the physical training. Getting people just in shape and that sort of thing. But that led into interest in other areas of, just really, seeing people, like the physical is just a way to help people transform. So and then when I saw that was really, that was even, and then really that's, looking back, that's the same thing that happened to me. It's like, like I said, the psychological piece of it was probably a bigger transformation, but I didn't really realize it at the time. Into looking back, and now with people that I see make changes, and sometimes just changing their belief in themselves, you know, and you see that sometimes through physical training, they're not, maybe they don't believe they can do it, or they can lose weight, or they can, you know, build muscle or get stronger, and they see that, like, oh, where else can I apply this? You know, like you said, it's the same principle. It's a process.
It is.
You know, and you can, you know, if you got the right process, you can apply it.
Well, isn't like your weight, isn't that just like the ultimate wrong way to look at things? Is like, how much do I weigh?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, you know, it's really more about the composition of that weight.
Yeah.
You know, I think a lot of people, you know, I even have some doctors as clients that still will kind of focus on that sometimes. I'm like, you should know better. You know? And we kind of joke about it, but it's like you can be the same weight. You know, that you were, you know, when you're 50 that you were when you're 20 and look totally different.
Well, I had a guy on my basketball team in college. He was 4 inches shorter than me and weighed 30 pounds more and was ripped.
Yes.
I mean, compared to me, he was just all muscle. It was like a boxer dog or something, the way he looked. And he had lean, you know, he's very lean. And that's the first time it hit my head that maybe this whole how much do I weigh thing is not that big a deal.
You know, and especially I think it's hard for women. You know, it's just kind of how, you know, from society, whatever, they kind of focus on a weight. But, you know.
It's such a weird thing, too, because who knows what a woman weighs?
Right.
No one's telling.
unless she tells them.
Yeah, no one's telling. I think it's for some. I don't know who in the world made that the standard that people worry about, because it's so wrong. But that's just how life is sometimes. We believe things for reasons that aren't necessarily true. I call that head trash. So what about is it Jiu-Jitsu or Judo? What do y'all do? Jiu-Jitsu. Now, how did you bring that to Greenville? Why did you do that?
Same kind of thing. You know, I had an interest in martial arts, and I trained in a few other styles of martial arts. And I think most people, at least my age, that you know got into jiu-jitsu, and originally was from the UFC, the Ultimate Fighting Championship. And when that first started, it was really, you know, it wasn't like it is now. It was no rounds, no weight classes, you know, no time limit, very few rules. They didn't even wear gloves. But that came out of what was called the Gracie Challenge. It's basically like, you know, in martial arts, you have, you know, you mentioned like judo or, you know, karate or these different ones. And if you go to any of those schools, it used to be like, if you went in, they'd say, well, this is the best art. And so how do you know? You know, and so that was kind of the Gracies. They said basically, well, you know, we'll show you. We'll come to your school and we'll have a match. And we'll see who wins. You know, and that they used to do that in Brazil, which is, you know, kind of Brazilian jiu-jitsu is the style that we teach. And then watching the first few UFCs, it was pretty cool. I think it was the year before last, Hoist Gracie, who was famous as a Hall of Fame, was really the first Gracie to fight the UFC and won like the first 2 or 3 tournaments. And he's not a big, imposing guy. Like, you know, like 6 foot, maybe 175 pounds, and he's fighting guys that weigh way more. So I'm like, he's making it work. I'm like, whatever he's doing works. So I became very interested in that. And there was really nothing in Greenville at the time. And the closest place I could find was Atlanta. And I didn't know when I went down there that I was training with a legend, but Jacques Ray, who's founder of Alliance, went down there. I was a little intimidated at first. I didn't know really what to expect, but they were just great. Jacques Ray's always been great to me, and started training down there. And my intention was to go down once a month, and then that I was like, you know, came once a week, and then, but I'm only training like once a week, and then trying to find people to do stuff with the other times that didn't know anything like me. And I go down there, and all those guys are training all the time. I was like, I had to do something different. And so I talked to Jacques Ray about opening up a school here in Greenville, just to really, honestly, to have people to train with. With my whole intention being eventually to bring someone much better than me to teach. And we're eventually able to do that with Rafael, who's our chief instructor now, who's really been instrumental in building our program to where it is now.
Yeah.
Like there were no black belts in the whole state of South Carolina, and I think we have like close to 30 training at our school now. So it's pretty cool.
That's very cool. And so, just how would a 170-pound person beat like someone who's like 250, some bigger person? What do they do?
Well, it's you kind of. I mean, it's kind of cool.
I watched the MMA a little bit. Will they get like grab a knee or something?
Yeah. Well, jiu-jitsu is more the grappling part.
Okay.
So now the UFC, not to disparage UFC at all, it's a spectator sport. So people understand getting punched and kicked. So they have rounds now, and if you're on the ground too long, they'll stand you up.
Yeah. Okay.
But if you watch the old UFCs, like they were, I mean, especially if you didn't know what jiu-jitsu was, it's boring.
Yeah.
Because it just looks like they're laying on the ground for 30 minutes. You
Right.
know? But basically, it's utilizing, so the self-defense part, we take in consideration like, punches and kicks. But for the sport itself, it's just grappling. So think of it as like wrestling with submissions. So you can do, joint locks, some chokes, that sort of thing. So it's really, like you mentioned, the process. It's the same thing with jiu-jitsu. It's like it's technique.
Yeah.
So you're using technique, and what we tell people is, it's really understanding, obviously the techniques, but they're applying leverage. So if you have leverage, you have an advantage, and then also being able to calm your mind and be able to think. So if you're under duress, you played sports. So some people, like when the pressure's on, they don't respond as well. But if you can stay calm, you can perform. So that's another beautiful benefit. With some of our older, clients that we've gotten into, we have what we call a master's class on Saturday, which is, for some of the
Maybe
older.
I should go to that.
We'd love to have you in there. We'd love to have you. But it's because it's we're not putting you against 20-year-olds and that sort of thing. It's just so you can learn the movement. You have to be very attentive because if you got to be focused on what you're doing. So being able to really apply that to a technique with someone resisting is pretty amazing. So if the person has the technique, they can overcome a much larger opponent.
Right, I got it. Let's talk about the resistance training and why that's so interesting in terms of, because I know as people age, one of the things is they lose muscle, and if they fall, they might hurt themselves or that kind of thing. So how do you keep that muscle up without going to the gym, 2 hours a day? So tell us about this thing, and this is the thing I'm doing, so I love it.
Yeah. So kind of in general, our what we would say is our system is really focused on quantified high intensity strength training.
Okay.
So you were mentioning sales earlier, this kind of maybe you can tell me if I'm screwing this quote up. Basically, I think it was Peter Drucker's talk about if you want to manage something, you got to measure it. So we utilize some special technology, ARX, which basically stands for Adaptive Resistance Exercise, which you've had a chance to experience. So we use that for a training tool, but also as a measurable. So we can measure, how much force you're creating. We do it in a safe way, but it allows us to really measure how a person's increasing in strength. So our focus in the training is really to stimulate. That's what we always tell people. Like the primary objective of the exercise is to stimulate the muscle, and then we do that through high intensity exercise. And one of the forms processes we use is basically taking the muscle to fatigue. Right. So and our philosophy of that is if we're going to train the muscle intensely, we can't train it for long. It's like if you compare it to running. If I'm gonna sprint as hard as I can, I'm not gonna go for very long. Yeah. If I want to go at less intensity, I can keep going for a long time. But for the type of result we're looking for and the stimulus we're looking for building muscle and building strength, that intensity needs to be high. Yeah. So and we do the movements in a slow and controlled manner to keep it safe. So we can train at a high level of effort while keeping the joints safe. Fatiguing the muscle, and then letting the body do what it does, which is recover and adapt to that stress. So that's why the workouts are, it works out good from an efficiency standpoint, but the reason they're short is because they're intense. Yeah. So and doing that, 1 to 2 days a week is what our typical client will do for that.
Yeah. Yeah, which I find amazing that most people can keep their muscle tone up or maybe even improve it a little bit with 1 or 2 30-minute sessions a week. That's pretty cool.
Yep.
That's pretty cool. And again, I want to keep harping on something is that Billy found and chose something he really liked at a young age, and it's so easy as a young person to see Billy now and say, well, I want to do what he's doing, which is a big multi-gym with jiu-jitsu and stuff. That's not how it starts, right? You started studying it, and then you lived it, you worked it, and you started working for somebody else, and you worked for somebody else again. And eventually, how did you make that bridge from doing the 101 to having your own thing?
Yeah, I mean, I think some of it, looking back, was, I would say my uncle was very instrumental in that. He was looking for I knew I wanted to have my own place.
Yeah.
And he was looking for an investment. Mm-hmm. And I won't say he was a smart businessman because I had no clue what I was doing from a business standpoint.
Yeah.
But at least he invested, and at least he got his money back, and I think it was a good investment for him. But yeah, I mean, I just took the jump and kind of went for it.
Yeah.
And and when you talk about like the sales and the business part, I would say for me that would be one thing I would recommend to someone. If they were asking my opinion of it, make sure you got that other part too. I was fortunate enough to be able to be successful without much of a understanding of the business side of it. I was basically just because I was super passionate about it. In the last few years, I've kind of spent more time focusing on the other part as well. So make sure that we're not just measuring things in the with results in the gym, but also looking at from a business standpoint.
Sure. Because
you got to have revenue coming in and to pay the bills and be able to do it and be able to add equipment and be able to offer a better service. So that would be, I would say, the other side of the equation that I didn't put a lot of focus on in the beginning.
Yeah, I think that's very normal. It's very normal. It was my first business. I really had almost no chance of success. I had a good idea and nothing to back it up. I mean, I didn't know how to do sales, marketing, accounting, anything, And so I tell people all the time when they have a good idea, I'm like, you've got to round out those other things, whether it's sales or marketing or whatever. So I think your passion and you just did such a good job. You probably drew enough people in the gym to make money. So you did not have sales training at the beginning. In your career thus far, what things have you done on the sales side that have worked well?
Honestly, for us, has been, I would say, really the referral business. Trying to basically try to do a really good job with the clients that you work with. And that's really how we've mostly, from a fitness side of it for sure, that's how we've mostly built our business, and a lot with our jiu-jitsu program as well. Rafael, who's does a really good job with the social media part for getting the word out there about our jiu-jitsu program. And we have someone that we have hired to help with that too, as far as promoting it, and getting people to come in for the demo sessions and that sort of thing. So but yeah, that's really been in the last. I mean, we saw a big difference when we started doing that in the jiu-jitsu, because we felt like we had a good product, especially with the jiu-jitsu. We thought we had a good product, but we were like, why are more people not coming in?
Yeah.
And I think some of it was just they didn't know we were there.
I think that's true. I think it's true. I mean, I think in my case, I was actually wanting someplace where I could do a little bit of, because I do Orange Theory every day.
Yep.
But I wanted to add some weights. In fact, Orange Theory told me, John, you should add one or two times a week with some heavier weights. And I think Devin Pace called me and just said, hey, I'm doing this thing, you might be interested, kind of thing. It was good for me. But that's the thing, if you got something as good as you have, I think you need to be more aggressive, even if it's just on social media, saying this is the kind of stuff we can do for you.
Yep.
Most people don't know you can keep your muscles strong, for an hour a week.
Yep.
It's pretty good.
Yep.
Have you tried anything in sales or marketing that's just been a huge flop? What was the biggest flop ever?
the biggest flop ever? I mean, honestly, I tried several different things. I think, and just looking back, I don't remember any specific ones, but just I think part of it is I didn't have a really good plan.
Yeah.
And then also for some things I probably also didn't give it enough time. So I think that's. I mean, really, honestly, everything if I'm being honest, looking back, I think everything we tried sales-wise or like marketing never paid off until probably the last 2 or 3 years. And that was our thing we did with our social media was probably the biggest thing from that side. And then I worked with a gentleman, and she has a podcast. Yeah. It's called the High Intensity Business Podcast. Where he brings in people in my industry to talk about business, but also just the exercise. Just sometimes it'll be just purely about how to train. Yeah. And other times it'll be about business and that sort of thing. Yeah. And he started coaching me a couple years ago. It's been a big help on that side too.
Well, you brought the first CrossFit to Greenville, right?
I believe so. Yes.
What year would that have been?
That's probably been, let's see, probably about 13 or 14 years ago, I believe.
Wow.
Yeah.
And where was that located?
Well, at the time, we were on Washington Street. Okay. And I was doing one-on-one training, and I had the Jiu-Jitsu. And at that time, I was doing it all. I was teaching Jiu-Jitsu, and I was like, man, this is rough. And I was also always searching for a better way, which I say now is like, not say it was a mistake, but I shouldn't say I was searching for a better way. I was searching for the best way. And now I'd say, I'm not going to say there's one best way. There's many ways that work, right? And it's just finding what is best for you at that time. So the training I was doing originally then was very similar to what we're doing now. We didn't have some of the ARX or anything like that. And then that's when I said, I've been looking at this CrossFit stuff, and let me, see what that's all about. So I said, well, maybe that's a better way. And so we started doing that, and we were in that same location, and then we moved to Lawrence Road. And that's really where we had the CrossFit gym there.
Okay. I've seen that gym many times. My son, Taylor, has been a CrossFit instructor for a number of years. He was at CrossFit Reaction with Brandon for a while. Now he's at the Roop. You know the Roop? It's a veterans center that's just opened up. He's doing the CrossFit gym there. But
awesome.
I worked with him for years, but I think I've just aged out.
Yeah, I mean that's why we basically moved away from it. It's like it's great. I mean, I'm not going to say it doesn't work, but for long term, sometimes it's challenging. Yeah. Like it can kind of beat your body up. So.
So on the social media side, which social media is working best for you?
Really, I would say Instagram and Facebook still some. We still do ads through Facebook. And that, like I said, for our Jiu-Jitsu program, that really helped us get, because we have where you can basically sign up for a free trial. So it's, no pressure, you come in, you can try it out, and we basically give 2 private classes, and then our 2 private sessions, and then you can come try a group class. And we had a pretty good, when people come in and try it, they like it, And of course, we do a similar thing with our fitness now. We say, come see what it's all about. No pressure. Find out what you're looking for. Make sure it fits, because if it doesn't, it's not what you're looking for, we don't want you to sign up. Right. It's not like a gym where we want you to sign up and never show up. We want you to show up. So that I think that that allowed us to really get people in to come in and try it. Whereas before we would offer like a class, but I think doing the private first and using the social media as a way to get people to sign up for that has been really helpful.
So I came in for the test class with Devin. When we were finished, she goes, so you want the 1 class a week or 2? Excellent close. I love it.
She's probably I'm the worst closer, so her and Larry I let do the most of the sales.
Well, that's great. That's great. We're going over to the favorites now. What would your favorite book be?
When people ask me that before, I realize I kind of go to probably some of the things I've read, last. That's because it's
Yeah.
fresh in my mind. But one book, actually, Hafiel, our jiu-jitsu instructor, gave me, which has really been incredible. It's a book called Becoming Supernatural by Dr. Joe Dispenza.
Okay.
And that's really kind of blown my mind. I was already interested in some of the things he talked about, but just the way he explains things and, speaking of like longevity,
Yeah.
I guess he would be another person that I would look at
Yeah.
from that perspective as well.
Okay.
Pretty amazing stuff. And I think, he's not really talking specifically about fitness, but some of the things he talks about there as far as the mind and how that impacts our body and everything else is just, it's pretty amazing. So I think he wrote a book also called You Are the Placebo. I have not read that one yet, but
Okay.
that's on my list of things.
I've heard great things about Dispenza.
Yeah.
I haven't read it yet, but that's a good one. Okay. Favorite band?
What pops in my mind is Prince.
Prince. Nice. That is awesome. That is awesome. Oh, Prince, man. He could play any instrument, right?
I think so, yeah.
And then favorite word?
That's an easy one for me, arete.
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 What does that mean?
It's a Greek word. Basically it means like excellence. I think if you were to look it up in the dictionary, but actually I heard a gentleman who also is kind of, I follow a lot of his work, Brian Johnson. He was on a podcast with Mark Devine, and I think Mark asked him a similar question, and he said, basically I can sum up my life's purpose in that one word. And so his way of describing it was, arete is about being your best self from moment to moment to moment. And I was like, wow, that's pretty powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that kind of that really stuck with me, and so I tell people that's kind of the goal. Do I fail every day? Yes. But if you can have that as a goal,
Yeah.
it's pretty powerful.
Yeah.
So we originally in our logo for the gym, we had that in there, but it was a little too
much.
much,
Yeah.
and so we took that out. But still a big piece of kind of the driving force, so to speak.
Yeah. I'll have to look into that. In the last year or two, I think I've finally turned a corner. We hear and we talk about things like, all we have is this moment and blah, 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 and I used to always hear that. And it just kind of went in one ear and out the other. And then I would worry about what happened 10 years ago, and I'd be worried about what might happen 8 years from now. And I've finally gotten to the point where I really don't worry about it anymore. I really say, today is the day. I don't have any other day at the moment.
Yep.
The Super Bowl didn't happen this afternoon. So today is the day we got. So what are we going to do with it?
Yep.
And then tomorrow, hopefully we'll have another one.
Yep.
But we don't have next week.
Yep.
We don't have last week.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Isn't that wild?
I've heard it the same way many times. Of course, with arete, that really got me thinking about it. And I heard a lady just last week, I was watching a documentary, and the way she worded it, I wish I could remember exactly how she said it, but she wasn't saying like you don't, because sometimes I've taken it as like not planning.
Right.
You got to plan. She's like, no, it's not that you're not planning, but really you always only have like right now.
Yeah.
The past is the past. Can't do anything about that.
Right.
The future, but that the way she worded it was really, really powerful. Which really makes you think. And so it's really true. I guess you only have that one.
Yeah.
If you read Joe's book, it'll blow your mind even more because he's
Okay.
like different dimensions and all that stuff. It's just out there.
Well, I'll read it. I'll read it when we get together and
Yeah.
talk about it.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll do a book review or something. That's cool. So, in terms of promotion, why don't you just, for the record, talk about whatever you want to promote, or any part of your gym, or anything for the listeners.
Okay. I would say probably right now that, so we kind of, like I said, I mentioned we kind of rebranded the name of the gym, Optimization Training Lab, because going back to the arete thing is like, look at it, everybody may have different paths of what that means to them, like what optimization means, So and obviously we don't have every path at our gym, but we do have kind of 3 different ones really that we focus on. So we have the fitness part, which is what you're doing. And I say that's just a piece. There's also the mental part as well, and other things that we work on within that. There's a jiu-jitsu path, and then there's the sports and speed school that Braylon runs. That could be a path, especially for our younger kids that are playing sports and so forth. So, and then just if that resonates, our website, all of our programs we have, like we talked about, you can sign up for a free demo and come see what we're all about.
Okay.
We've had people come in for one thing and end up doing something else.
Yeah.
We had one gentleman a few years ago came for jiu-jitsu, and he just was overweight and really struggling with some health issues and that sort of thing. And I said, why don't you just come try to work out, get in a little better shape first, and now he's lost, over 100 pounds and has become an instructor himself and that sort of thing. So you never know where it's gonna lead.
Yeah.
So
you're all about optimizing health. You have a couple of different ways to do that. Okay. All right. Well, you are the OG of health and fitness in Greenville, and we're lucky to have you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Don't be going back to '96. But thank you very much, and thanks for doing so much for Greenville.
Thank you.
All right.
Appreciate you.
Thank you. All right.